right, we will call the Tuolumne County Transit Agency meeting to order. This will be the opportunity for oral communications to allow the public to speak on any item not on the printed agenda. Seeing none, I'll move to the consent calendar.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the consent calendar.
Second. So item 2, approval of December 13, 2017 meeting minutes, and item 3, request for trolley service for Celtic Fair in March. Is there any public comment before I take the vote? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries. Thank you. Item 4, figure out where I'm at. Whoa. Approval of the use of low carbon transit operations program funding to expand Tuolumne County Transit Service from May to September to serve Jamestown, Sonora, and Columbia with weekend service, primarily Saturdays. Allow the executive director to sign, submit, and execute all necessary documents related to the LCTOP.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. This item here is brought to you, thanks to, I should say, the Cap and Trade program. As you know, Air Resources Board sells credits on emissions annually, or twice a year, I should say. And this year we estimate the proceeds from that will go into Tuolumne County's low carbon transit operations program at about $71,000. Previously, we thought it was less than half of that amount, but so they've had a very good auction in the last year or two or so. And we had previously discussed funding weekend and holiday service to Pinecrest on summers through the summer season. However, with the increased amount of funding available, we are looking for additional projects. We've been approached by the Visitors Bureau. I think it might have even been on your last agenda. To get direction. Hey, excuse me. I need those on the back room too. Perfect. Thank you. I'm sorry about that. Anyways, we've been approached by the Visitors Bureau to consider doing a trolley service from Sonora to Columbia and Jamestown. And they have actually offered about $25,000 in some of their funding to offset the expenses to Tuolumne County and also allow us to offer this as a free service. It would be open to the general public, so it's both an enhancement to services for the Tuolumne County locals, but also a great service to visitors to the community. And we've been working with the Visitors Bureau in regards to how we would put the service together, where it would stop, what its frequency would be. And they're going to work towards marketing it, maybe have some docents on board or at different stops and really get the merchants to support it. As you probably recall, we did have a similar service several years ago. We just didn't generate enough ridership. But what we've learned through various efforts, like for Dodge Ridge is a good example. It did not do very well until Dodge Ridge itself started helping promote the service, and then it took off. And since Tyler's worked with marketing yards on the 120 corridor, that ridership has taken off. We feel with the Visitors Bureau being a good partner to help promote this, working with merchants, that this does have some of those key elements for success, and it's worth trying again. So with that, we'd recommend that you direct staff to continue working with the Visitors Bureau to develop the weekend trolley service and allow us to submit appropriate documents to the Air Resources Board. Is it Air Resources Board or Caltrans on this one?
The low carbon
Caltrans. Caltrans, okay. So we would submit all the appropriate documentation to go forward with this project.
Visitors Bureau is going to contribute $25,000.
Yes.
It says in there. Do we have an idea what the total cost is? We're getting $70,000 in cap and trade. Do we know approximately what we might spend?
Grand? Yeah, I think the whole service is not much more than $25,000 itself.
All right.
Depending on how many days we run, there's even some discussion about while having that core service, if there's an event on a weekend in, say, Twainhart, we might have a bus connecting up there. If there's a Strawberry Music Festival, there might be a linkage over there, so some outlying events might also be served.
Okay.
But those things are still being figured out.
Okay.
So I have a couple questions. First of all, will there be special transit stops for this service over and above the normal transit stops?
Yeah, I believe so. We haven't quite got to that granular level yet as to where the stops will be. I think we're still working on locations with the Visitors Bureau, and there's some discussion about if merchants help promote it with maybe discounts on some of their products for people that ride the service, that be one more incentive to put a stop near to that location. Things like that. Some of the details are still being worked out.
I hope that you're working with the city of Sonora to find a unique spot, because it would be nice if this, on Saturdays, that this transit bus stop in front of the Visitors Bureau, and there could be some kind of a placard or something to promote it more as a special service. And then, did you mention that there would be possibly an interconnection maybe to the Pinecrest bus?
Yeah, I think again, we haven't worked all the details out, but we're thinking the connection to the Pinecrest bus, maybe the Yards bus, as well as other weekend events are all in the works. And as far as the question about a stop at Visitors Bureau, we were thinking that as we come up from Jamestown on Highway 49, Stockton, we'd probably go right, go down by the ends of California, loop back around, and that will allow us to maybe stop at where the old Umpqua Bank is.
And it also states in our binders that the service will be operated primarily on Saturdays, but will also include Sundays on Memorial Day, Labor Day, and the 4th of July.
Yes, that's the plan at this point.
That's great. So I think it's great that the Visitors Bureau wanted to be a partner on this, will help with some of the costs on it, and hopefully it'll be a great success.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, Darren, as you indicated, this was tried previously. In fact, I think, going back in my mind, this was one of the reasons we bought trolleys to begin with, as we thought that the trolley going through the 3 destinations would enhance a visitor's experience here in the county. So to have this come around again, and I believe it didn't work the first time around because we didn't have the marketing to go along with it. And with the Visitors Bureau now being involved with their marketing expertise, I think this is going to be a great service for our tourism.
Yeah, I do too. Those elements are key, and I'll give Tyler some credit here too. He spends a lot of time on Yards and the ski bus, meeting with various hotels and meeting with them face to face. He loves getting out of the office to do those sorts of things. But they all cross-market the service, and if we can get the merchants along Highway 49 up into Columbia doing the same, I'm very confident of success.
Tyler, anything?
Nothing to add.
Nothing to add. That's unusual. Any public comment? I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move approval of the low-carbon transit operations program.
Awesome.
Motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
You want to do this one?
Motion carries. Thank you.
I'll let you do it.
I did. Thank you. Item 5, adopt the revised policy language for special event transit services, excuse me, to allow for, number 1, when appropriate, regular fares to be collected for events that meet the identified criteria, and number 2, post-event evaluations that affect an organization's consideration for future public transit service.
Mr. Chairman, we'll let Tyler present this item.
All right, thank you. So for your consideration today is a revision to our special transit service policy. Every couple of years we take a look at it and we look to see what's working well and what modifications we can make to streamline the service and make it work better overall. I think by and large what we've seen is a growth in the popularity of the service and more demand on the service itself, which has led us previously to increase the budget slightly. But it's also allowed us to take a look at the Federal Register for the service and try to determine, are there new ways that we can help offset the cost of the service in particular instances. So today we're considering potentially detailing the ability for a special event service to be approved and, unlike in the past, to be able to charge our regular fare. And as the types of partnerships develop with how special event services are requested and the length of some of the events that we're serving and the number of folks who are attending these events and the fact that they may not necessarily be free, we've outlined a potential strategy for detailing which events would continue to be free and which ones would allow staff to make a recommendation to your board to charge for. So the three criteria that we've established that would be used to help with this discretionary action would be whether or not the event is free to the general public. Many of the events that we serve are free, the Motherlode Parade and the Sonora Christmas Parade, and many of the events that we serve and have served for a long time are not necessarily free, like the Motherlode Fair and the Unruly Brew and Q. So that would be one item. Of course, all of our events have a nonprofit that submits on behalf of the organization, but in some instances it's a partnership where for the county and marketing and the overall event success, a nonprofit submits in partnership with a larger organization. This would be a secondary criteria for us to consider whether or not we charge our customary ridership fare. And then lastly, we've seen more and more events that are multi-day events or in some cases multi-weekend. And if that is the case where we're serving, for a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or for 2 or 3 weekends in a row, it would be optional for us based on these criteria to charge that customary fare. And then lastly, we propose to, as part of the approval process, we already do a post-event summary, but to do a more detailed breakdown for your council to take a look at. Hey, this is an event that we decided to serve. Here's how many days the event was. Here's how many folks we saw. And here's kind of an overall cost breakdown on, maybe what our cost per passenger was. And then as opposed to an event being approved in the first year and then automatically kind of being approved for future years of service, this would give us an opportunity to revisit each event and decide whether or not we want to continue funding that particular special transit service. So these are the two additional items that we are proposing, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions?
I don't have any questions. I do have a comment.
Go ahead.
All right. I'm just glad to see that staff has taken the initiative to look at what the costs are associated with doing these type of services, and that you're getting ahead of the game. And I think that what you have proposed is very fair.
So I think I have 2 questions. How do you verify the nonprofit status is one question. Take their word, or do they provide you something? 501c3, 501c something?
Yeah, typically as part of their request, they have to actually share their nonprofit status number, and then that's something we can go online and check to make sure. In most cases, it's organizations we're very familiar with, and so we take it on, their word, but it does give us that ability to verify that status.
Okay. My other question on page 5, existing criteria for being considered for special event services. You have, looks like 6 items. That's the existing criteria. Then below that, you have the proposed or new criteria. And the one thing that stood out to me that looked different, one day or weekend event for nonprofit, the existing criteria. And then for the new criteria, event services more than one day. Did you mean to make that difference, or did you actually intend on them being similar or identical?
We're keeping all the same criteria as criteria for being qualifying for service. The second set of criteria are whether we want to charge a fare or not. Once they qualify for providing the service, the second set of criteria is whether we charge a fare or not. So it's not, we're not changing out one set of criteria for a different set.
It's
This is
additional.
supplemental.
Okay.
And the fare would be the established rates that we have now, or?
That's correct.
Okay.
Go ahead.
We may try at some point donations appreciated. I have heard from other transit services that when they say donations appreciated, oftentimes they end up getting more than if they just charged a fare.
I saw that somewhere, but I thought that was more on when you don't charge.
Yes, but we're going to kind of integrate that into our program and see how it works out. And so you may hear us come back and say on these types of events, we won't do any fares, and we'll just do donations because we're finding that works in other venues very well. We're going to kind of feel our way through this a little bit and may have some additional revisions.
Okay. You'll keep us up to date as things evolve?
Yeah, I think our intent is to have at least an annual report to you that'll feed into next year's budget. So you'll be able to look at all the events, how much each event is costing us, how many riders we got, what's our cost per rider, and if we're going to accommodate them, this is what our budget will need to look like versus our existing budget. Or if we want to cut back some, we can kind of draw a line and set some criteria. Well, it needs to at least yield some cost per rider and not be way out of scale with everything else. And we'll probably compare that to what it costs for us to provide it on a per ride basis for fixed route versus dial ride. We'll give you some sort of something related to.
Okay.
I think the ones that don't have much of a cost benefit will really be obvious.
Any public comment? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board. For a motion.
Make a motion based upon staff recommendation.
Second?
Got a motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Item 6, consideration of joining Yosemite Area Regional Transportation System, or YARTS, board and making a financial contribution to the service.
Yes, Board, this item presents an opportunity. I think we've discussed a time or two, but the discussion is moving along, and I wanted to update you on where we're at. As you know, we have had YARTS services on 120. We've had tremendous ridership growth, in large part to the efforts of Dick Whittington down at YARTS and Tyler and others, and Cindy Kelly, who is here tonight. Cindy's actually replaced Dick Whittington as the general manager for YARTS, and she can probably give you an update on some of their organizational changes down there and a variety of different changes, I think, that will make the program more cost-effective. But having said that, they, a while back, they being the YARTS board, invited Tuolumne County, Madera County, and Fresno County to be non-voting members and participate in their meetings and give input because we are corridors served by YARTS. Right now, you have Mariposa, Merced, and Mono County contributing financially to YARTS, and they're regular participants in those meetings, and they like to broaden that out a little bit. So they've the discussion has been elevating our status from non-voting member to voting member. They are interested in our participation in that regards. They are willing to make some adjustments on what organization, be it the Board of Supervisors or the TCTA, as a representative for Tuolumne County. They do want an elected official to be the representative. And what I've committed to, and I think John and I have had this discussion, is that we will, it's not always easy to get down to Merced and devote the hours of the day that it takes to drive there, participate, and come back, but we can certainly have teleconferencing in our CAO's conference room. We're going to get that on our schedules and make a stronger commitment to doing that. And in doing that, we want to participate, and we've been asked to participate in an update of the YART short-range transit plan. In that transit plan, they're going to look at how to make YARTs more cost-effective, how to serve the riders better, what does it look like for future services in the various corridors. And in fact, I would point out that we actually asked for a special contribution to that short-range transit plan that would study YART services down the 120 corridor into either Modesto at Amtrak or perhaps over into Manteca at the ACE train, and perhaps we could have some local services connecting in Chinese Camp or something like that. They're going to look at that, and we're going to contribute to that one extra piece of the transit development plan. So they've been very helpful to us and open to any of our suggestions. But a key aspect of the short-range transit plan is to look at what would be a fair share contribution to cost. Right now in Tuolumne County, we're the only corridor that I know, as I believe, doesn't contribute any local funds to YART services. The park through gate fees pays for all the services on 120. But YARTS has some financial needs in terms of replacing buses and expanding the services with new buses and a variety of things. And they like us to contribute. But to do that, the short-range transit plan is going to look at what is a fair methodology for determining a fair share contribution. And they would like us to participate in that. John and I have discussed a few different ideas and different methodologies we maybe should look at that seem reasonable to us. I've mentioned some of those to Cindy. She's open to that. She's promised me that as soon as they get started, the consultant will be coming up to talk to us about what our individual needs are and maybe what we think are factors that should be considered in methodology. So we want to continue to have a seat at the table, be part of the transit development plan, be part of the identifying a reasonable methodology for local contributions towards YART services. But what this item proposes is that we continue the dialogue working towards potentially being an actual voting member of the Joint Powers Authority for YARTs. No commitment at this point in time. All I'm asking for is direction to continue those discussions. We'll bring back at another date what the methodologies would look like, what financial contributions might be needed to become a full-fledged member of YARTs, and certainly any kind of joint powers agreements we would need to take through legal counsel and bring back. So this is an ongoing process, but it's kind of a check-in at this point to make sure that I'm bringing my board along with me in this process and getting your input along the way. So,
Yeah, the discussion really started way before 2012. The conversations I had with Dick Whittington, and originally our discussion was from Groveland to Yosemite. That's where it was first looked at, but obviously it's evolved into something much greater than that, starting here in Sonora and going through Groveland. And I think it's obviously the number's been really successful. My concern is always how much is it going to cost and where's the money going to come from? And I think that we can't figure that out unless we move forward with the dialogue to get a better understanding. You know, I don't know what the dollar amount that the park is contributing now, 350,000 or something like that in the neighborhood. That's a big chunk of money that we all benefit from to get our vacationers on that bus into Yosemite. So I'm certainly in favor of the discussion part of it,
Yeah.
for sure.
One of the, what I think is a reasonable assumption is, or mix is that, you know, people who come to our area and then use yards to get access to the park are benefiting the park by not having those parking impacts and contributing to congestion. That should probably be a ride paid for by the park. But if we got somebody here in Sonora who's using yards to commute to a job at Rush Creek, or in some other way as a local trip, that's probably a trip that we should consider paying for. So that's kind of where one thing I think is a good approach is what's the mix of local trips versus, you know, tourist or traffic to Yosemite.
And I think in Mariposa's case, a lot of their ridership is park employees. And I don't know if they had a transportation system prior to Yarts going in there or not, but my understanding is that they take up a lot of the ridership, whereas the majority of the people that get on the bus here are tourists, and most often from other countries, and they appreciate that bus service, and they stay here and spend a lot more money, too. It's the good thing.
Yeah, I do think with the crowding that's in Yosemite, Yarts is looked at as a solution to that. Not the whole solution, but a piece of the solution. And we've had some discussions about having more park and rides in Groveland that people could park and then ride in. But maybe when the park is congested, spending a little more time in Groveland, which usually translates into spending money for lunch and other things. So I think Yarts is going to expand in Tuolumne County, and we want to help be part of that.
So I just want a clarification. I didn't realize that a lot of employees were utilizing yards to get from point A to point B.
Not so much in Tuolumne County, but in Mariposa
Yeah,
County.
I think it's fair to say in, say, Mariposa, you've got a lot of park employees in El Portel that ride in, and they rode in on a transit service before Yarts existed, and there's also people in Mariposa that commute down to, say, Merced College. So they had an active and robust transit system on the 140 corridor long before Yarts came along. Yarts replaced that service, so certainly there's a strong tie for local transit contributions on that corridor. And our corridor, it's a little less well established, but I think the data is coming along to identify how many are local trips versus into the park. I don't think it's a big number that are riding in terms of local trips to either from, say, Sonora to Rush Creek or from Groveland into the park as an employee or to the gate. I think I don't know what that number is, but the data is there, and I think that we can kind of mine that data a little bit to figure out what share of the overall cost is that.
So is there a special rate for those people that are utilizing?
There is a commuter pass.
Commuter pass?
Yeah. And Chairman, I'd encourage you to invite up Cindy Kelly to talk about. She can give you way more details than I can. She's very good and knows all these things.
Well, the amount of ridership is an excellent number as to how popular it's become, so. Now, it does say in our packets that currently Yosemite National Park covers the entire cost of service in Tuolumne County. So is that true also for Madera and Fresno County?
No.
No.
We're the only county that has their services paid 100% by the park. John did a heck of a job negotiating with the superintendent.
Thank you, John.
It only took 5 years.
But you got there.
Yeah.
All right, any other questions?
Yeah, Darren, so who makes up the board at this point? I didn't even realize there was a board.
Maybe Cindy could answer. a lot
Yeah,
of
Cindy's
those
probably better to
questions.
answer on that.
Well, I was trying to get the questions before, so that way Cindy would be ready.
Oh.
I'm always ready.
believe that.
The board is made up by supervisors from Mono, Mariposa, and Merced. There's two supervisors from each county that make up the Arts Joint Powers Authority.
2 supervisors from each of those counties?
Yes.
2, 4, 6. So that's 6 on the board at this point?
Correct. And Darren and I have had this talk, and he was at our last meeting, and the reason this was brought back is because we now have an opportunity at this time with the service going as strong as it is, knowing that we're going into our 19th year, we're not going away. And we feel that it's time that the counties that are not non-voting members have an opportunity to make decisions about how the services are run in their county. Right now, you have 3 counties that are deciding for 6 counties, and there's a bit of unfairness in that. We need to have representation from the areas we serve so that you can make decisions about your own county and what yards looks like in your county.
Well, I'm pleased that suggestions, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Darren, but suggestions that we've made to improve the service or to do something different in Tuolumne County has been accepted by the board and gone along with most of what we suggest.
It has been, but it hasn't always gone as quickly as if we had actual representation at their boards to push things a little bit. Now, and I think Cindy's very open to change, and all these, we share a lot of ideas, and we love a lot of her ideas, she loves a lot of our ideas, but it hasn't always been quite that smooth.
Well, I think it's time we get on the board, that's for sure. I had my doubts about yards when it first started, but I've been fully convinced that I was wrong at that point in time, and so I think it's time we move ahead. We need to know the financial impact, of course. We also need to remember that there is an economic impact to Sonora and the county for having those bus trips start here, staying at our hotels, eating at our restaurants, and then traveling to Yosemite. So there's a real positive impact there that I can see.
And we frequently hear that from the Visitors Bureau.
Yeah, and I think one of the things, like Darren and I talked about with the short-range transit plan coming up, the consultant is already aware that he needs to make contact with the representatives in each county in determining these methodologies and present several options for funding. Currently, Merced County contributes the most, then Mariposa County, and then Mono County, which is only seasonal from June through September, only puts in $35,000 a year. So it's not that they give a great amount, it's just that they're a member and that's their contribution. So what we're going to do through this short-range transit plan process is have them identify several different options for funding for yards, or what member contribution should be. Is it going to be based on service, hours, like Darren said, is it going to be based on local ridership? So he will present those as part of this plan, and then the board will make a decision at that time to which ones they'll accept.
May I ask what Merced pays right now?
$300,000 a year.
$300,000?
Yes.
Wow. Thank you.
It's probably worth noting in that number the huge disparity in level of service, the frequency and year-round.
Correct. Yeah. Merced is the only year-round corridor, and in the summer it becomes the largest service area. We go up to 14 runs a day. And in the winter, we are down to 12. And like you said, it serves a lot of the National Park Service staff. It also serves, a lot of the commuters that are going both ways, either to Mariposa or to Merced and continuing on from there. So that is the largest corridor served.
Would you anticipate if we join and pay our fair share, that their costs would go down? Is that one of the options, I guess, that we'd be looking at?
That's definitely something we can look at. We're going to leave that up to the consultant that we've hired. We have, we've chose this one. Tyler was also on the scoring committee for that and the selection committee. And we all felt that they would bring the best methods for yards and the best suggestions and recommendations at this time and in the future for the next 5 years in this plan anyway. And so we are going to let them decide that. Should they be paying less? Should they be paying more? Based on what? What numbers are we looking at? So we're going to leave that completely up to the consultant. We were very happy with our selection because they came in and they immediately told us that it's going to be a data-driven plan. It is not something that they're going to bring their values in and their suggestions. They're going to use the data to compile this plan, and that was very exciting for us.
George, I think it's also, or Mr. Chairman, I would also point out that Cindy and the Yards Board have several different things they're doing that should result in reduced cost of operation. They got their own yard that's going to be combined with the the bus yard, so it's that will allow the contractor, much like our operation, instead of having to lease their own facility, they'll just come right onto the grounds that are leased or owned by the agency. They are putting out a competitive bid. I think I've heard as many as 5 different potential vendors, including Store, a local firm, or, well, local to us anyways. I believe that they're going to see real reductions in hourly rates. I think they're at about $145 an hour. We're at about $70 an hour. You say, wow, that's a huge disparity, but I think that gap's going to get narrowed up considerably over the next few months.
Another question. When are you expecting the plan to be complete?
The plan is set in January of 2019, and at that time it'll be presented to the board for approval, and then it will go into effect. I refer to it mostly as my Yards Bible because I don't really do anything with the service until I've actually consulted the short-range transit plan to see what direction we should be moving in for Yards.
So at what point are you looking possibly for Tuolumne County to join?
You know, at the last JPA meeting, it was more or less, let's bring this back for discussion. We're also looking at Fresno and Madera counties as well, so their boards also have to be informed. But it was more, I got more of a sense that it was sooner rather than later. That this has been an 18-year process. And like John said, this discussion has been going on for a very long time. And now that our service is not going anywhere, we want to look at the expansion of service here in Tuolumne County, the expansion in other counties, and with that, we want to have those counties fairly represented as part of the Joint Powers Authority.
This is going to be a really far-reaching thing when you consider the possibilities of being able to take a Yards bus to the Fresno airport. I mean, that's could be a really big thing for seniors and for...
Right, and that's how we market it now. You can catch the bus from Sonora, transfer over to the Fresno service in the valley, and then go to the airport in Fresno.
I tell people you can go anywhere in the world on Yards.
Oh, boy.
At least start on Yards.
You got to get started there, though.
How long does that trip take?
From here to probably about 6 hours to get to the airport.
A Yards bus is the best place to take a nap, let me tell you.
Yeah.
You know, going back to your question about how long, I think I sensed that was in a 3 to 6 month time frame that the methodology would be worked out and some numbers would be starting to be put on the table. My guess is that they want to incorporate, as I would want to incorporate into next year's budget, what that might look like if we're going to make that decision. So we really need to have a number by June-ish.
Darren, would you think that the amount of whatever the payment would be would come out of your budget?
Yes.
Wouldn't be coming out of the city of Sonora's budget or the county's budget?
Well, you know, we just mentioned we got 71,000 in LC top money. We're going to use some small amount of that for the trolley service and 20,000 or so for Pinecrest. Then we have roughly 50,000 or so of unallocated money that this could certainly go to. With SB1, we've got other funding sources that are growing. It's growing our state transit assistance fund. Later on, we're going to talk about state of good repair money. I guess the short answer is I don't think it's going to have a net impact when you consider some of the new revenues coming online to the city and county in what we pass through. Not so much we the TCTA, but we the TCTC. It could potentially affect the amount of money that gets passed through for local roads. So if that's going to happen, I'll make sure as we work through the budget numbers, you know that this is having no net impact or it's having some net impact.
Right.
At this point in time, not knowing what the number is, it's hard for me to say, but my sense is that we'll probably have no net impact on pass-through funds.
Anything else you can add to the informational base?
Well, we're excited about coming up on this year. There's been a lot of transition in yards with Dick's retirement. We also got a new executive director at MCAG. And with that, there are going to be a lot of changes in yards. One of the best things that's happening this summer is that we're going to have free service here in Tuolumne County, in Fresno County, in Merced County, and in Mammoth Lakes. We were the recipient of the Federal Lands Access Program, the first transit agency to ever be funded under that program to provide those free service days. So this summer, you'll see a lot of free service on yards.
Keep us posted.
Absolutely.
Any other questions? There's a lot spinning around, but seems like with time, we'll hear more.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for being here. Any public comment? I'll bring it back to the board. You have a recommendation, and then you have one from TAC and CAC, and which do you prefer? It seems like the second one, but I don't like assuming.
The second one that you direct staff to continue participating in the ongoing discussions with the Arts Board regarding the possible future membership.
So move.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Nobody. Thank you. A lot of stuff coming down.
Yeah. We're busy.
We're
busy people these days.
Item 7, approval of Resolution 45-18, approving the California State of Good Repair Program project list.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, as a result of SB1, there's enhanced funding to State Transit Assistance Program. And one of the funding criteria is consistent with SB1, where the overwhelming majority of money is going to just maintaining and rehabilitating the existing system rather than growing our road system or adding capacity, just doing a good job of keeping your highways and roads in good state of repair. The transit dollars are earmarked for good state of repair. We could use these things for a variety of things like rehabbing bus shelters or maybe doing improvements at various bus stops or even our transit facility itself. But we thought the simplest, easiest way is just put these monies towards basic road maintenance, bus maintenance, which is an allowable expense. It's very easy to account for. We spend over $300,000 a year on maintaining our buses, and we would suggest just programming the full $76,983 to maintaining and rehabilitating our buses. Very easy to account for, very easy for auditors to make sure we're doing it that way. And probably the best news to our road guys is that that will, in the end, create more pass-through of funding to local road maintenance and our local transportation funds. So that's kind of some of those other funds, George, I was talking about. We've got new revenues coming, and this is one of them. So happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, you'll see this item both on this agenda, which then it goes to the TCTC to then approve to submit to the state. So I'd recommend that you approve Resolution 45-18, approving these funds for good state of repair.
Okay, any questions? Public comment? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion based upon staff recommendation.
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. And we are on item 8, reports.
I have no reports on transit.
Sorry?
No reports on transit.
No report. Betty, anything here, or are you going to wait? Okay. All right. And we will adjourn the Tuolumne County Transit Agency. Give me about a minute to switch gears. Tuolumne County Transportation Council. We'll call that meeting to order. Oral communication will be that time for the public to speak on any item not on the printed agenda. Seeing none, we'll move to the consent calendar. Item 2, approval of the December 13, 2017 meeting minutes. Item 3, Washington Street Improvement Project update. And item 4, direct staff to submit 2 applications for the Sustainable Communities Transportation Planning Grants Program, Tuolumne Active Transportation Plan, and the Promoting Safe Bicycle Travel Opportunities for Bicycle Tourism and Economic Development. Anything to be pulled?
I'm going to pull the minutes, item number 2.
Oh. Anything else? Any public comment on items 3 and 4? Seeing none, we'll entertain a motion on 3 and 4 of the consent calendar.
I move we approve items 3 and 4 on the consent calendar.
Second.
Motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Items 3 and 4 are approved. And item 2, approval of the December 13, 2017 meeting minutes.
I pulled this only because if my recollection is correct, Councilmember Rice was here late, but he stayed for the entire meeting. And he's not listed in the meeting minutes.
You're right, because he was noted in the transit
Yes.
minutes.
If you like, we can bring these back next month, corrected.
Well, they
Unless-
can be
or we-
approved with the correction.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that your motion?
That's my motion.
Approved with corrections, do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries, minutes approved with corrections. Thank you. No, you're fine. Believe me, no. You got me off kilter. Item 5, oh, great. Gee, I wonder what happens here. Tanya, that one, I could hear you all the way up here. Election of chairperson and vice chair.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to nominate Mike Ayala as chairperson.
I'll second.
I'll third it.
Feels like a shotgun wedding. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And vice chair.
I'm going to make a motion for John Gray to be the vice chair.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain. Ray Rhodes.
Motion carries. John Gray is vice.
Okay.
Thank you.
See, that was easy.
Yeah. Painless. All right, item 6. Approve Resolution 578-18, authorizing the execution of the certifications and assurances for the California State of Good Repair Program. What
Sorry.
was that?
Sorry, I didn't have my mic on. Because you've already heard this item on the last agenda, I'm recommending approval as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Any public comment? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 6. Approve Resolution 578-18, authorizing the execution, wait,
We just did.
thank you.
7.
Item 7, adopt resolution number 577-18, approving fiscal year 17-18 unmet transit needs findings report.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Alex Padilla did the staff work on this item. We had a number of items to be considered in the unmet transit needs process this year, and I'd like him to run through those very quickly.
Thank you.
Thanks, Darren. Every year, the annual Transportation Development Act requires us to see if there's any regional transit needs before we can make any allocation of TDA funds. And this year, we consulted with the SISTAC as required. As part of the agenda packet, they did sign a letter supporting our, confirming our findings for this particular report. And for 17-18, we did receive 5 unmet transit needs requests. And 2 of these requests we did receive at our public hearing that we held on December 13th, 2017. Our finding and determination is that there are no unmet transit needs that are reasonable to request for 17-18.
Perhaps I could elaborate at least on one of the items. We had a lady, a very nice lady, come and talk about her transit needs. And staff did meet with her at her residence. She lives out at Cascades Mobile Home Park. We've had different levels of service to that area for a number of years, be it deviated fixed route with dial ride. Somewhere along the line, she got confused and didn't think we served that area. And so we did meet out there with her and explained to her how dial ride works. We assume we do deviations out with our fixed route bus, but I think she's probably more inclined to be a dial ride user. When the staff was meeting with her, there was actually a bus there loading up somebody in the mobile home park. We're hopeful that she'd become a regular rider. We understand she's maybe become a little ill lately, so at some point we'll check back in with her and make sure it's working well for her. But we think we've got her straightened out on transit rides.
Okay, good to hear. Any questions? You look like you're gonna ask some.
No.
Oh.
Fooled
I was
me
reading
too.
you, man.
Yeah, you read me wrong.
Don't run off yet, because there's something, page 7, in reading this, there's no conflict of one organization overseeing another organization with the same directors and staff?
And no, that's the way Caltrans wanted it.
Okay.
Remember, we used to do this all as under one organization. And this is what Caltrans said we should separate out have a completely different JPA for transit, but the staff could do both. It's a little bit like when I went down to the arts meeting. They were approving their state of good repair budget and projects, and they would be submitting them to MCAG. Now, their meetings have to be on different days, but a lot of the same board members and a lot of the same staff. So this, particularly when you get to smaller counties, this is how it's often done.
All right.
Betty, you want to add anything to that?
Smart lady. Any other questions? Any public comment? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move approval to adopt resolution number 577-18.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Item 8, presentation by Caltrans on the Sonora Jamestown SR 49-108 corridor study.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to be joined today by Alex Padilla of our staff, as well as Charles Carroll of Caltrans. Charles is heading up a team from District 10 Forecasting Planning Division that is doing a congested corridor plan for Tuolumne County, looking at Highway 49 through Jamestown, extending all the way to Chicken Ranch, up through Sonora and into Pedro Y near Columbia. And I think it's important that we give Charles a chance to kind of do an overview on the project. He's got a short PowerPoint presentation, and then he'd be happy to answer any questions. I may have some follow-up comments when he's done.
Good afternoon. Thank you to the chairman and the executive director and the council for inviting me to speak today. I'm Charles Carroll, and I'm going to give a little update on the corridor study that we're working on with the 49 and the 108. So let's get started. There we go. So the purpose of this is to evaluate multimodal strategies that address congestion on the state highway. This has to do with SB1. There's the Congested Corridor Program, that SB1, it came out last October. And so the idea is that when we present a strategy, we're hoping that that can be used in the future to apply for grant funding as part of the Congested Corridors Program through SB1. And that could be something that would help relieve congestion on the state highway here in the Jamestown-Sonora region. The goal, we want to document current and future conditions and present strategies to address needs on SR 49 and 108. The need is to reduce congestion and delay, enhance safety, and enhance multimodal transportation in an effort to improve the overall performance on the 49 and the 108. Now the scope, we'll have maps that will show this later on, but the scope is from Chicken Ranch Road to Parrots Ferry Road on the 49. And so that is the limitations of our corridor study area. And we're hoping to complete this this year, hopefully in fall, maybe August, maybe September of 2018. So that is the basic outline of our study. And I'm going to give it over to Alex, and he's going to talk about the TCTC Complete Streets Corridor Plan.
Thank you, Charles. We just wanted to highlight that we received a Caltrans Transportation Planning Grant last spring for a very similar corridor study as well. And our corridor study is going to be a 3-year grant, which last December we did get your approval for the steering committee members, which includes Caltrans and a couple of other local partners in our area. But to kind of give you a little bit of a perspective, we're going to be collaborating with Caltrans, sharing resources while we work on our grant as well. And some of the nice things that we're going to be able to do as part of some of these sharing resources include traffic counts, which Caltrans has already done in our corridor. So we're able to utilize those traffic counts. And they're also going to be doing some traffic modeling, which we're hoping to partner and utilize as part of our corridor study. And I think that some of the more ultimate goals is we're hoping to partner on future projects and potentially SB1 funding programs.
Alex, what does traffic modeling mean?
Traffic modeling is usually a tool that transportation planners like to use to project what the future traffic will be like in the future. We did it for the regional transportation plan. We looked out 10 to 25 years out in the future. So we're hoping to do that process again as part of this corridor study. And we're hoping to utilize Caltrans resources on this.
Right, thanks.
So this shows the area that we're looking at. So you can see we got 2 green spots that indicate the limits of our corridor study. So the one in the south, that is Chicken Ranch Road, where the post mile is approximate to 12.817, the Caltrans post mile. but that is Chicken Ranch Road. And the northern limit is Parrott's Ferry Road. That's approximate to a post mile of 20.392. This, we've been working on collecting census data, and this indicates a comparison of population structure in Tuolumne compared to the state of California. And so what you're seeing here is that for age ranges from 5 and less to 44, California has a higher average percentage than Tuolumne, and then what you're seeing from age ranges from 45 to 85 is that the percentages in Tuolumne are higher. So this indicates that demographically speaking, we're seeing a shift towards a concentration in populations in age ranges from 45 to 85 in Tuolumne. This is the timeline we have for our study, and so it's kind of a rough estimate of where we are right now. The red line indicates today. So generally, everything to the left is what we've already started working on and or we have finished, and everything to the right is the work we have yet to complete. So we have plenty of things to do. But we have a few main components of this study. There is the traffic modeling. Part of it is counts, and that comes from video counts. We have video cameras set up in some locations to count pedestrians, bicycles, and vehicular traffic. And we have other sources of count data. Transcad count data could be another source that we want to look into. Also VISM. VISM is a micro-scale traffic modeling software program, and it can be used to model activities at intersections. So you might see things like pedestrians or bicycles or buses or any kind of vehicular mode. VISM is developed to the point where you can actually, you input your data, you input what you've collected from your counts, and you model how that would look in real time. And you would actually see the components move. It's like a kind of a visualization of what might occur at an intersection. It may give you the opportunity to see where bottlenecks are located, where potential conflicts might exist between different modes. So we, on our staff, we're working to develop a VISM model for the entire corridor. So it'll show everything from one end to the other, including all the access points in between. Hopefully that's what we want to have at the end of this. Of course, we have a general list of meetings, the document itself. So we're in the phase of documenting current existing conditions, and then as we go, when we collect our data, we'll be able to get to a point where we can evaluate our data and develop a strategy that can improve congestion on the state highway. And then, of course, we'll have a section on implementation, and the document will go into draft review before it's published, and that will be reviewed by all of our partners, so TCTC and the county, and so we'll have a process where it'll be up for draft review before it's finalized. And then maps. Maps will play a major role. I love maps. And so they will provide a visual account of what we're seeing. And so we've worked on several maps. We intend to develop more bicycle facilities, land use, programmed or proposed projects in the corridor. We'll have a map that shows that. And eventually, we hope to have maps that will depict some of the strategies that will come out of this corridor study. This map shows where our count locations are. So red indicates that it's already under analysis, so the count was completed, and we're analyzing the video data, and we're basically counting what we're seeing in the video. Yellow indicates that we have not scheduled a count at that location. We're still evaluating where we could put a camera. So there's no certainty yet as to what will count at that location, but it's something that we've been thinking about. And green indicates that we intend to have a count there. We intend to go there, set up cameras, and to examine that section. That's the fairgrounds. We want to gauge pedestrian and bike activity and vehicular activity, but also we're interested in gauging pedestrian behavior in that area, especially in light of what's happened there over the last few months, the accidents that have occurred there. We want to try to get a better understanding of what's going on there. So we are keeping our eye on that area. So it's altogether, it's possibly 5 locations where we're going to be doing our video counts.
Can I ask
Yeah.
I got a question
Go ahead.
on bicycling,
Yes.
which isn't real prevalent here in Tuolumne County, and it's because it's not safe, basically, to ride your bicycle on the roads around here. How do you take that into consideration? I mean, you're not seeing the bicycle count because there aren't a lot of bikes out there.
Well, we are seeing some bicycle activity, but it's the SB1, this congested corridors program. It's an opportunity to evaluate what we can do to improve conditions on the state highway, and certainly we have an opportunity to improve facilities for bicycles. There will be a map later on that will show you, well, there will be a similar map that shows the condition of pedestrian facilities on SR 49. And so it's a similar vein where we want to do what we can to improve our multimodal opportunities. In the long run, the more opportunities we have for multimodal transportation, we think that can make a difference in relieving the congestion that occurs on the 49.
Does Caltrans encourage bicycling on its state highways?
We are trying to become a multimodal agency. So we are very supportive of policies that promote bicycling where, particularly in complete streets corridors. So when we talk about complete streets, when we talk about context-sensitive solutions, we're often going to touch upon multimodal transit, and that includes bicycles. Obviously, if you're on the 99 and you're going to Bakersfield, that's a slightly different situation for a bicycle. But on many other state facilities, there is that opportunity to examine what we can do to improve bicycle. It could be Class 1 or Class 2 or Class 4 bicycle facilities, or widening shoulders. Yeah. Those are some ways to address the needs of bicyclists.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. So this shows corridor steady parallel route facilities. And the basic idea is to evaluate parallel facilities in terms of how they may affect the 49 and the 108. So there we can see the Greenlee Road. Greenlee Road is the yellow line off to the east. The purple is Rawhide. The red, that is Campo Seco, and I think Jacksonville attaches to that in Bell Mooney. And also the green is Jamestown, and the violet is Racetrack, and the blue is, I can't remember which one. Charles Flat, thank you. And so it's a chance to evaluate how parallel facilities play a role in terms of how people choose an alternative facility rather than using the 49. So in the end, this may come to, we may be able to get a better understanding of how that affects the state highway. This indicates level of service. So this is from our 2013 SR 49 TCR. The red indicates an LOS of F. E indicates, well, that's orange. And yellow is D. This is afternoon peak hour. And this comes from only depicting vehicle LOS. So this does not have multimodal included. But basically, this map shows that there is a need. It does, basically it shows there's a deficiency on the state highway. So in other words, the map is basically saying that there is an opportunity to improve performance. And this one depicts the current state of pedestrian facilities on 49 and 108. So the blue shows that there's basically no pedestrian facility. There's no sidewalk, no paved sidewalk. Green shows that there is a hard surface, like a wide shoulder, where a pedestrian might feel a little bit safer walking. But it's not a sidewalk. It's just a hard surface. Orange indicates that there's a sidewalk on one side of the facility, and red shows that it's on both sides. So red indicates that you have sidewalks on both sides of the state highway. And that is it. And if you have any questions, I'll be glad to take them.
So we do this study and it points out all these deficiencies. Where do we go from there?
I think the next step is to examine what we can do in terms of applying for a grant. And for SB1, for this congested corridors program, the idea is that you want to pick something that has a multimodal solution to the congestion. And there are other factors involved, like safety would be one of the components, one of the other items that you would want to have in that type of application. So the idea is that you would use this further down the road to make a decision about what type of strategy or what type of project you think you could apply for.
Okay. Would this type of project be of a higher priority than, say, widening 108 someplace else, or coming out of Oakdale?
This, for SB1 purposes, for this study, it would only, I think one of the rules, or one of the recommendations out of the congested corridors program is that it has to be a multimodal project. So it can't really be something that mainline expansion, is not something the program would cover. That would be, you could go after a separate program. There might be a separate opportunity for widening the main line of a highway.
Yeah. I'm just, what I'm trying to get clear in my mind is that if we go after a grant for this type of program, the multimodal type program, is there a better chance of getting that type of grant than there is, say, one like I mentioned? Are we looking at a better chance of going after that type of money?
I would say if you meet the requirements of the SB1, this SB1 program, if you fulfill those requirements, I would say there is a chance. And you'll have opportunities to present a project over the next few years. Okay. So I think in 2019, and I think the last year is 2020. So there is time to put together a project or to make a decision. And if it follows through on the multimodal emphasis of the program, there should be a chance.
Okay.
So widening 108-49 through Jamestown, multimodal, this might prove beneficial. Is that what I'm hearing? Or the Greenlee Road extension?
The congested corridor program does not projects on the state highway system. You might recall, one of the very highest priorities, or the highest priority for widening and capacity increasing projects in our regional transportation plan is a 5-lane widening of 49 from roughly east of Sierra Motors to west of Main Street in Jamestown. Now, that's a corridor that should not only have widening, but should also have a complete street design which would accommodate transit stops and walkways and whatnot. I don't know if the congested corridor funds can be married with a STIP fund or not. Charles, you got an idea on that?
I think if there's, it's a controlled facility.
I think in some conditions, the answer would be yes. I think if it's an HOV or if it's some type of a managed lane facility, it might be eligible under SB 1.
So I'm not real hopeful, but at the same time, shop funds might also play into paying for some of that. So that would be primarily a STIP-funded project, but this project would help us identify the need and purpose for that project. Maybe some project limits is what we've talked about in the past. My proposal would be, and you'll hear me talk about that again in the next item, is that we would work with Caltrans to develop a project study report for the STIP project on Highway 108-49 through Jamestown and begin to move us forward to perhaps putting something in the 2020 STIP. As for a congested corridor program funds, it can be used for capacity increasing projects that are off-system, meaning a local road that's a parallel route, such as Greenlee Road Extension, or what sometimes we refer to as Phase 1 of the North-South Connector. In that case, if it gets in this report and they recommend that as a remedy for congestion in downtown Sonora, this program would pay 100% of construction cost. But Lord knows there's an awful lot of process and money to be spent between getting it ready for construction, and that would be a big challenge. And but this funding opportunity is there. I would like a little clarification since you mentioned the 2019 and 2020 programs. SB 1 is forever, as long as it's not repealed, of course. Do you envision funding opportunities beyond 2020 for the congested corridor program?
That is, let me look into that.
Okay.
Let me check again on the congested corridor program.
We need him to have the mic.
Okay.
Let me look into that. Let me check the congested corridor program, and I will determine how that works. Thanks.
So, with an opportunity, and I believe that the congested corridor program is likely to continue on past 2020 because certainly the gas taxes will continue, that we would put into next year's work program an item to move that project forward, assuming that it comes out of this congested corridor plan as a recommended improvement project. And we just initiate that process because we do know that it would take at least 5 years to get that project ready for construction. But we don't, and we need to really lay out in a cooperative manner between the city, the county, and the TCTC how we get there. And I can share more on that on the next agenda item. But I think those are kind of where I see us going and trying to access as much of the new gas tax money as possible to alleviate some of the greatest problems in Tuolumne County. And I think the fact that Charles is here doing this plan, which is a prerequisite to accessing those funds, shows the state recognizes this corridor as important and perhaps an appropriate place to spend some of those congested corridor funds.
Okay. Any other questions?
I have a question. When, I may have missed this, but when do you think that this corridor study will be completed and ready for presentation?
We're hoping to have this finished this year in fall, so possibly August or September. It depends to a certain extent on our data collection and the time that it takes to process and analyze our data, but we're hoping this year in fall.
And then, I'm assuming that there'll be public, some kind of public feedback to do with this study that you're looking for?
Yes, we want to have there will be a draft review, and so that will be the opportunity for comment.
That'll be prior to the completion of the
That,
study?
absolutely, yeah, we definitely have a draft review phase before we finalize any document and it's published.
And then one comment, and that is that being up here in a rural community, something we see here that maybe there's better facilities in the metropolitan areas, but we see people who actually are trying to, their transportation is a wheelchair up and down the state highway.
This is part of the multimodal effort under SB1, under this program, and this is something we're going to look at. When we look at pedestrian facilities, we're also going to take into account ADA facilities and where deficiencies are and what we can do to meet those deficiencies. And we're going to put that into a strategy in this study. So this is something we're definitely going to take into consideration.
Any public comment? Uh-oh. She comes up out of the dark.
Thank you, Charles, for presenting that. That's very nice that you've come up all this way. I do have a question. If you could go back to one of your slides that talks about the corridor study parallel route facilities. And I'm hoping that maybe you can elaborate more on this, because if you're looking at multimodal areas or projecting onto these parallel route facilities, some of these, and I just want to point out for our council members too, within the county, this is a minor collector, a major collector that currently don't meet all of our county circulation elements. And so if you choose to push out some of those multimodal elements off of the state highway onto a county facility, is that going to make us have to improve those corridors? And we have tried over 2 years now looking at ATP applications and haven't been successful. So I'm concerned that here we're going to be imposed on something that we will not be able to fund, even to build that multimodal facility. So that's my only comment.
No comment.
They're trying to decide. I was watching the looks.
You know, I think it's important to point out that while the county has been unsuccessful in securing ATP funds, SB1 provides a significant increase in funding to the county, and SB1 does encourage shoulders that can be used as walkways and bike lanes, and construction of those shoulders and widenings on county roads or local roads whenever you go and do a pavement rehabilitation. I know in the past, there's been kind of a just do it edge of pavement to edge of pavement, and don't go any wider because of all the environmental issues that go into that. But there's been some relaxing of the environmental requirements for building within your right-of-way in the disturbed shoulders that perhaps make it a little bit easier to get through the environmental process and do some of those shoulders. I know I've heard a number of county supervisors talk about that would be a priority for them. Certainly Carl Rutherford's talked to me a number of times about it. So I don't think the intent of Caltrans is to push pedestrians or bicyclists onto parallel routes that are county roads presently. I think they're looking at it, what would happen if they made some changes in terms of capacity increasing elements on those roadways. How would that benefit or not benefit the state highways? Because we oftentimes hear from people say, why don't you look at the Jamestown corridor as a bypass for Sonora, or why don't you look at a western bypass of Sonora? Those are the elements they're going to be looking at. So that's more of a congestion relief is where those corridors come into play. But, you know, in response to Tanya's comment, there's definitely not enough money in the system to widen every local road out there, and certainly not all of those roads. But I would encourage her to look for those opportunities when there is a paving job being done. Because I know that's kind of the intent of SB 1 and a promise from the legislator to the taxpayer that all the roads will become much more multimodal, whether it be on the state highway or a local road.
Okay. Anything else on this?
This is just an information item.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Keep us posted as this develops.
I will do so.
Thank you. Item 9, discussion and approval of projects for the Tuolumne County Transportation Council draft overall work program for fiscal year 18-19.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, as you know, we adopt each spring an overall work program. And in that work program, we identify all of our funding sources that we have under the TCTC's umbrella and how we're going to spend those resources to implement projects and programs. And the very first step we have in that process is we come to you with just a really basic list of all of our work activities. And, you know, we've also note if they are a carryover item, if they're required by law or some federal or state policy, or if they're a discretionary element. And this is an opportunity for us to add priority projects, or certainly we've eliminated a few off this list of things that is completed work at this point from last year or the current year. But it's an opportunity for you to let us know what you see as being important. Likewise, it's an opportunity for staff to identify things that we're working on, like zero emission vehicle programs will be in here, but also look at trends and opportunities and address them as best we can in our work program. And with that, the two key elements that I'm proposing in this year's work program is that we, number one, ask Caltrans to do a project initiation document for a congestion relief project on Highway 49 through Jamestown. It is a priority that's been identified by the TCTC, the Board of Supervisors, and City Council. I did attach a memo to this effect in your packet. And certainly with some infusion of funds in SB1, it would be an opportunity for, if they can complete that project initiation document in the 2020 STIP, we would then go for funding to perhaps begin the environmental document. We know these big projects take 5-10 years to complete, so we think now's the time to start on that project. Likewise, based on what you heard on the last item about the congested corridor program, there's about $200 million available through 2020 for congestion relief. And as I noted in the previous item, if Caltrans notes in their plan a project on a local road system, such as the Greenlee Road Extension or North-South Connector Phase 1, that they would pay for 100% of construction. Clearly, there's a lot of cost in regards to environmental reviews and right-of-way that we'd have to figure out. and what are the next steps that are appropriate in that project. I know looking back on the records, we had a presentation from the Community Development Department. They recommended refinement of the alignments, working directly with property owners, meeting with property owners on site, having more public meetings to talk about that alignment before even moving into the environmental phase. But you would also do, in that early phase, what we call preliminary assessment of environmental issues. So you get at least an assessment of where maybe environmentally sensitive areas are that you should just avoid entirely with your alignment. Get those things figured in. And that would be a phase that would allow us to really understand where the roads, what the different alternatives should be studied in the environmental document, and what those alignments look like after getting a lot of input from property owners and the public. What I'm proposing is just kind of a very first step in that regards, that we convene some sort of project steering committee. Preliminarily, I would suggest perhaps myself, David Gonzalez, maybe the city manager. And I think that we should also, on a project like that, have at least one elected official from the city and the county as a steering committee to help us move forward. We've got Wood Rogers, a consulting firm that can help us begin those first steps on some of those recommendations that the county recommended to deliver that project. It's, again, a high priority in the regional transportation plan. I'm happy to say that the regional transportation plan had projected it not having any funding till about 2030, and with SB1 we're getting an opportunity to move that forward. If the project can clear all the many hurdles that will be along the way, that perhaps that project could be done in a 10-year time frame, assuming that some of those SB1 funds continue past 2020. So that's the suggestion, that we move forward on the basic initiation documents for both the North-South Connector Stage 1 project as well as the STIP project through Jamestown. Those would be big efforts, but in the scheme of things, great projects to move forward with as we start looking beyond Peaceful Oak Interchange.
John?
Yeah, I'm fine with it. The ramps, Peaceful Oak, where they're at.
The ramps are fully funded. We've submitted them in the STIP. The STIP hasn't been adopted yet, but we're expecting full funding of that. I believe we're going to start construction in spring 2019.
Okay.
Spring what again?
2019.
Next year.
I think it should be out to, if memory serves me correct, will be out to bid this fall of 2018.
Talk later.
There's
Connie.
also noted in here proposed, under the proposed new projects, the Monterey relinquishment project. Right
Yes.
after Peaceful Oak Interchange. Is that process moving forward, or is it done, or?
That's not a new project, actually, and that project's been a little while. This is the relinquishment of the section of highway between Peaceful Oak Road and the new stoplight up at the end of Stage 2. That one we should have fully funded in this 2018 STIP. I think Tanya's planning on moving that to construction about 2022, if memory serves me correct. Our role in that will be kind of facilitating and making sure that the project stays on track as best we can.
You want to report on that?
Yes. That'd be great.
The county actually has cleared that project through the CEQA process, and we are working with Caltrans to clear it environmentally through the NEPA process, because being programmed into the STIP, there's federal funds that are tied to that, so we still have to clear it through NEPA. But it has been going really smooth, and we are at the point of 65% and just waiting for that environmental document to move forward and get that in construction. And we are sensitive to the Peaceful Oak ramps, so we've been working with Darren and his group to program those construction funds after that time has occurred, so there isn't a direct impact in that region. Did I
Thank you,
answer?
Tanya.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Darren, seems to me like we've been talking about the Jamestown corridor for eons. I'm not sure what an eon is, but it's been a long time. And I thought even plans had been drawn up for the widening in that corridor, and stoplights assigned to specific intersections. Is that still all in the process, or what?
Yeah, George, I think you're probably remembering back to about 1997, when Duke and I were presenting to Chambers of Commerce and maybe the Jamestown Improvement Association and others, a plan that would have widened the highway out to 5 lanes, realignment of Rawhide Road with a signal there, and then realignment of Fifth Avenue with a signal there. That project has been broken up into pieces through a series of decisions made by the Board of Supervisors and others. So at this point, Tanya's got an active project to deliver the Fifth Avenue project, and then comes after that would be the Rawhide Bridge and realignment project, and then later we would come forward with the STIP project. We're probably looking at around about 2029. And we'd do the widening out.
2029?
Yeah, I'm kind of projecting out a little bit here, but
I'll really be retired by then.
if I can get it through the environmental process and ready to go to construction in 5 years, I'd be delighted. But there's also the funding part of it that's got to be worked through. So.
It's been a long time.
I thought
Yeah.
the wheels of justice ground slowly. All right, what do we? All right, any public comment on this item? Oh,
And you get to see my face because Duke is on vacation. So Duke and our director of the CRA asked me to speak on this item on behalf of the county. We are greatly appreciative of the opportunity with the Congested Corridor Program through the Senate Bill 1 to fund the Greenlee Road extension and see the need for the driving public. The county has some reservations about adding to the county's roadway infrastructure and has concern about adding more mileage to our roadway system that we are currently challenged with in maintaining. So it's really important, especially with all the efforts that the county did working with the TCTC back in 2004, 2006, as they move forward to prepare the grant to go back to those feasibility studies and review. That's all we have.
thank you, Tanya.
Well, I'm concerned that we have no electric charging stations in the city of Sonora or in our near vicinity. And I've been asking and I haven't heard that anything is coming in the near future. And we have electric cars here. So I think we need to kind of prioritize accommodating them.
We did get a grant through the Energy Commission. I was going to mention the reports, but I'll just do it now. That we are in the beginning stages of finalizing a contract with the Center for Sustainable Energy to develop the Central Sierra Zero Emission Vehicle Readiness Plan project. It will plan electric chargers in Sonora as well as up and down the 49 corridor. It's a multi-county effort, including Alpine, Amador, and Calaveras counties. We're the lead agency on this. What we have seen is that the Energy Commission and PUC like to see you develop a plan, and then up comes priorities for actually building the charging stations and converting fleets in those corridors. So this is the first step in doing so. Part of this will also include a toolkit for private entities to know how to go about installing chargers themselves in their own parking lots if they so choose.
So how long are we looking at that?
Alex, is this a one-year plan or two-year planning effort?
3 years.
Oh, three-year planning effort. So it's kind of a longer term. We can certainly deliver early. Let's put it that way. I don't think we need a full 3 years for this planning effort.
Okay.
Okay, I have a question. Can that be, can we utilize that in conjunction with the plan for the transit project in downtown Sonora? To add charging stations?
I'm not sure how we would do that, so I don't want to say yes or no. Maybe we should talk a little bit more so I can understand exactly what you're thinking. But I think that there are some public parking lots owned by the city that we could certainly go after some charging station fundings for.
We're thinking getting it done as fast as we can, Darren. That's what we're thinking.
I understand. Well, and Alex is very good at keeping track of grant opportunities, and I'm sure he's taking notes.
How did the Groveland Hotel put that one in so quick?
I think she just called Tesla herself, and
Yeah.
they sent her a charger if she agreed to install it. Simple as that.
So there are options out there, I think.
It's kind of how Peggy was. She's kind of take charge kind of gal.
That's why I brought it up.
Tesla's easy to deal with.
Yeah.
They do it, they pay for everything. Whereas the other ones that we're looking at, we need to have funds to put them in. Is that correct?
That's correct. Tesla's taking the lead on building out their infrastructure, whereas Nissan and all the other types of vehicles are relying on public funds to put in the infrastructure.
But there are options of what I
Yes,
was pointing out.
that is correct.
Okay. All right, back on item 9. Any other public comment? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move for approval of projects for the Tuolumne County Transportation Council's draft overall work program for fiscal year 2018-19.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. On to reports.
Mr. Chair, I have no reports, and I would note that I got a note from Carlin that says she needs to leave at 5, so we need to do closed session very quickly.
All right, so
Real quick on Caltrans reports, and that's, yeah, go.
should we do the reports? Betty's pretty quick.
Yeah.
From what I remember.
Only have a few things. I brought the latest report, the mile marker.
Mhm.
So that's the latest status report. And Carl Baker retired, so Kevin Schroeder is acting for him for the next couple months. He would have been here tonight instead of myself, but he had another meeting he had to go to. So I have cards for him, so you have a way to contact him if you need to.
Okay. Thank you, Betty.
And Caltrans is also putting in some additional EV stations at the District 10 office. So just they are coming
Popping
about.
up.
Yeah.
Okay.
So thank you.
All right, thank you. And with that, we adjourn the Tuolumne County Transit.
You don't want to hear from
Transportation.
Tanya.
Wait, were you coming up? I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Quickly?
No, you guys, I will be really quick. I just wanted to brief you that we've completed the Q and Mill Culvert project. This was one of our storm projects, and it is now done and open, as well as we completed the Yankee Hill Rehabilitation Project, which you assisted in funding. The Tuolumne Park and Ride, we've awarded that, and that construction will break ground on March 5th, as well as your questions earlier about the regional project that was going on in the Jamestown corridor. The county will be presenting that advertisement for that project to install that signal coming February, so our Board of Supervisors will be seeing that, as well as the Rawhide project then will follow most likely in construction in 2020, since the actions that we've had to work with the state and the State Historic Preservation Office to extend our environmental document. On another note, we have some other construction projects that are moving forward, which is the Jacksonville Bridge Rehabilitation Project that will replace the existing deck with a polyester concrete. And then we also have the hardened flat bridge replacement, which was one of those projects that in the rim fire was burned, a bridge that was burned during the rim fire that we're now finally getting to replace under the Highway Bridge Program. And last but not least, with the great SB1 fundings that's coming forward, the county just at mid-year adopted their budget, including, we call it the Highway 120 Detour Maintenance Project. This is actually going to be a rubberized chip seal along Jacksonville Road, Algerine, and Seco Street, utilizing the SB1 funds, a Cal Recycle grant that we got for $146,000, as well as the detour funds that we got from the state. And that's all I have to report.
Thank you, Tanya. Very good. All right, with that, we will adjourn the Tuolumne County Transportation Council. We do have a special meeting agenda. Anybody who would like to speak, oral communication, allow the public. Seeing none, item 2, closed session, conference with legal counsel, existing litigation, Government Code 54956.9D1, Mark A. Villasenor versus Kathy Salcido et al., Tuolumne County Superior Court case number SC 19658. Do we expect to report out? Yes. We do. Okay.
Ask for public comment.
Thought I did.
Yeah,
Any public comment? Thank you. All right, with that, to your
Yeah, law library.
quarters.
Thank you.
So item number 2, Gray moved, Williams seconded, and by a vote of 4-0, the TCTA Board approved the County Council and/or the TCTA Executive Director to defend TCTA in the matter of Mark A. Villasenor versus Kathy Salcido et al., Tuolumne County Superior Court case number SC 19658, which seeks damages for alleged libel sustained by plaintiff, and the board approved submittal of the matter to CSAC EIA for determination of insurance coverage and tender of indemnification and defense to Star Transit Systems. With that, meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.